Okay, so as we said before, if the starter does not engage, we have to look at all these other things. And what are we looking for? We're looking for power coming in or out. Okay, so sometimes this might be a computer controlled signal, in which case it's a 5-volt signal, right? So we'd be looking for a 5-volt signal to pass through. But if we look at where it comes from, we can see, well, we are connected to the battery, right? Here's the battery. And this is, just so you know, this is a non-OE wiring diagram. I grabbed this one, shows you a little different thing that comes in there, and notice you can highlight wires and save them and stuff like that. So it's kind of neat. But so we got our battery. We can see our battery voltage flows through this fuse, through the ignition switch and out. So first of all, we should have power on both sides of that fuse. Power should come out of this wire, show up on this fuse when the vehicle is turned to crank. So here we go, right? This wouldn't have power when the car's not running, only after it's turned. So now if you look, let's follow it down. We see it comes down. It now gives a choice, right? Clutch pedal switch versus neutral safety, right? So here would be the manual aspect, and here would be here's our automatic, but no, it's actually opposite, right? Because here's park neutral. But anyway, no matter what, power comes down, goes through whatever device we have, shows up on the purple wire. Purple wire goes up and feeds the low current side of the relay, right? The windings. So this gets power. The other side of this is ground. So once this gets magnetized, look how cool it highlights. Once this gets magnetized, then the high current contact swings over. Now, what do you know from the test that I did before on the fuel pump relay? This is ground all the time. That means this ground goes through that winding, out the other side, all the way back up to here until that ignition switch is turned to start. That means this wire is ground when it's not being used. If I take a jumper from 12 volts and I touch that wire, right, or that contact, I can turn on that relay and crank that starter. Right? So it gives you another aspect. Let's say you turn that key and it's not starting the car. Well, I can touch it. The car won't necessarily start, but I can jump that relay and turn it on. Now let's look at where the high current side comes from. That high current fuse comes straight from that battery again. Right? So we have fuse number ignition A, and that feeds the high current side. If we wanted to check the draw of that starter motor, and again, that's a 40 amp one, we're not using a meter, right? We're using an inductive clamp on this one. This is the fuse that we would measure it off, and that's one of those big honking giant fuses, right? So power from the battery comes down and makes it into the starter, right? So you can see your fusible link over here, and the way this operates, that's a 141 class deal. And now with all that, this starter should start. Now let's think about a couple things. This could be a 5-volt signal from a ignition switch that goes into a PCM. In that case, the PCM takes that 5-volt signal and decides whether it should activate that positive signal to go to that starter relay. That means it can look at things and decide whether it should do it or not. So what are the things you think that it might decide not to let that starter start? One, right, neutral safety switch, clutch switch, that kind of stuff, right? If the clutch isn't depressed or the vehicle's not in park or neutral, the computer will say, nope, not starting that starter. So now we have to use scan data, right, a scanner, to go look and see whether this vehicle is in park or neutral, or if that starter has been enabled to operate. Now let's talk about another thing that might prevent that from going. One, anti-theft, right? The alarm system kicking in and shutting this down because the key doesn't match. So there's more than one reason that a starter might not engage, right? But we have to use a scanner to then look at it. Look at the alarm information, the anti-theft stuff that's in the body control module, to see if that starter enable has been canceled or blocked, right? So all this stuff has been talking about no crank type of scenario, and that's the beginning of a no start, right? So now we deem, right, we turn the key and the starter starts, in which case everything I just told you doesn't matter, right? Because it's working. If something works, obviously it's getting power, right? So we move past this now that we know our battery's good and our starter circuit's working, and now we have a car that cranks and doesn't start. So let's come out of this and let's go back to diagrams. Let's see if we can keep hanging in these color ones because they're kind of different. So we're going to go back. We're going to cut to the chase and we're going to go to vehicle, diagrams, right? See this electrical interactive non-OE? That's where we were playing before. So let's see what else we got in this. So we go down to, well, here we have powertrain management. A lot of stuff can be in there. Let's see what happens if we go into that. Look at the kind of diagrams you get from this, and it goes on to other pages and stuff like that, right? So we're going to go back to the regular ones, but know that you have this kind of thing, and then I can take it and I can highlight these wires within this stuff. So we're going to go back to here. We're going to go to diagrams. We're going to go to electrical OE. That's going to take our diagrams and bring them a little bit narrower in focus. And we're going to go to fuel injectors, right? Well, fuel pump. So, right. So we have a car that cranks and it doesn't start. So obviously there are factors that come into it now. And in a second, we're going to talk about that.